Today, I'm going to be discussing Colecovision and the launch games that came out around the time period of August of '82. I am a big fan of Colecovision, and I thought it'd be fun to look at the games that came out during the launch window. 12 games that initially were released for the Colecovision. Some of these games may not have officially been released on the exact day the console was launched, but in today's video, these are the first 12 games to come out around the time the console came out, the launch window. And so I love the Colecovision. I think it's an amazing classic console. You may not know anything about the Colecovision, but you're definitely going to learn something today. Or maybe you grew up with the Colecovision and these are going to take you back to your childhood. I had a lot of fun making this video, so sit back, relax. Hope you enjoy the video. I'm going to be looking at these launch games from worst to best. There's not a bad game per se. There's just games that I appreciate more than others. And the first up, and one that I don't like because of control, is Smurf, Rescue, and Gargamels Castle. Now this is an early platformer, and for the time it had very impressive visuals, but it was really confusing why they went with a control scheme that they did. You do not press an action button, Colecovision's got two of them, to jump. You have to press up and a direction on the controller. It's very confusing. This control scheme for this game does not work for me at all. I do like the challenge. It looks like a kid game, but I think as a kid I'd be very frustrated playing this. I played this later on as an adult and found the control to be fairly challenging. I was able, once to figure it out, able to progress in this game, but overall not my favorite game because of the control. If you're a Smurf fan, you may want to check it out. Otherwise, you may want to look elsewhere. Next we have Ken Houston's Blackjack and Poker. Now if you're a card game fan, you may like this game more. What's cool about this game, it does come with inserts. They're stored on the back of a Coleco cartridge, and then you insert them into a Colecovision controller like so. This definitely helps playing this game. I think for the time this made a great launch game, as there's fans of card games, especially Blackjack and Poker. And I could see a lot of people really enjoying this game. For me personally, I'm just not the biggest card game fan, especially gambling. It does things well. It has some nice animation and graphics for a card game of the time. If you're a fan of those type of classic games, you may want to check this one out. For me, it doesn't appeal to me as much because I'm just not into these types of games. Colecovision was known for its arcade ports, and this is one that I didn't know a ton about until a little bit later growing up, and that was Space Fury. And I love the intro. I remember hearing this intro going to the Digipress website, which I learned a lot about my classic video game knowledge. And so the actual game is a decent port of a vector-based arcade game. Now the Colecovision can't mimic those graphics, and this is kind of an Asteroids style game, an Asteroids clone, but it does have some cool power-ups that make it a little bit different. You have to take out different enemies before they merge into different attack patterns. The animation is a little choppy on this game, and for me it got a little repetitious, and so I do prefer some of the other launch games over this, but you may want to check this out if you're a fan of these types of games. Another arcade game I didn't grow up with was Cosmic Avenger. And this is actually a pretty faithful port of the arcade game. Colecovision really boasted some amazing graphics, and if you like to blow stuff up or like games, arcade games such as Scramble, you may want to check this one out. This is, to me, fairly obscure, but a perfect launch game as it demonstrated what the Colecovision was capable of. It did have some scrolling. It did have some different scenes and different backgrounds. For me personally, I preferred some of the other arcade ports that were offered on launch for the Colecovision. This for me was more of middle of the pack for Colecovision launch games, but if you like Scramble, you may want to check it out. The earliest climbing game among walkable platforms is Space Panic. Now, this inspired a bunch of other successful games such as Lode Runner and Apple Panic, but this is OG here. And so I really like the gameplay of this, where you're trying to dig areas and knock enemies into them and then fill in the hole. And so I enjoyed this. Some people are really going to hate this game, but I like it more than others. It's kind of a love or hate game and gameplay styles. I would give this one a few tries to get used to the gameplay, but I personally like it and recommend it to others. Now you're getting into some of people's favorite memories of ColecoVision and launch titles, and here we have Venture. Now Venture was also on the Atari 2600 and Intellivision. It is an arcade port. I really do like the look of the ColecoVision game. Now I'm playing with a modified controller. I had a arcade ball style replacing the top of my ColecoVision controller, making this a little bit more playable. Now, have to say, the ColecoVision version of this game has been criticized a little bit because of the control. This is an example of a game that I can look past some of its shortcomings because I actually really enjoy this game. I love going into the rooms and collecting the treasures. You may want to check this one out, as I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm a fan of some early classic Sega games, so it was really cool to see that Carnival was on the ColecoVision. This is a fairly challenging game, but once you get the hang of it, you know, you're taking out the ducks and trying to hit the pipes above with some accurate shots. You have limited bullets, you can get bonuses. This is a score-based game like many other classic arcade games. I really enjoyed this version. It has great graphics. It does look a little bit closer to the arcade versus some of the other versions. And what I played of it, I have enjoyed it. It even has the bonus round, which I really thought was funny and amusing. Definitely in the top half of ColecoVision launch games. The ColecoVision had these expansion modules, and these were sold separately, and this one, expansion module 2, was for racing games. There was approximately 3 games compatible with this: the Pac-In Turbo, Dukes of Hazzard, and Destructor. And so this steering wheel and foot pedal were used with the game Turbo, which was an arcade port. And it is an excellent racing game. Many people think that this is one of the better classic gaming racing games of the time period, and I have to agree. It's got amazing graphics, and if you have a functional steering wheel, this is a great game to play using the steering wheel. Since then, there's been a hack in which you can use the original controller to control this game, which might be an option for those going the emulation route. And so yes, Turbo is a great racing game. It's got great visuals, and the control is pretty excellent for a classic racing game. Highly recommend it, and you may want to check it out if you're a racing game fan. Another maze style game that was excellent on the ColecoVision was Mousetrap. Now this is a game that, you know, got recommended to me by a friend long ago, and I have to say I really enjoy the ColecoVision version. It does include overlays, and press various numbers on your keypad to unlock colored gates. There's a lot of strategy to this. I really enjoyed. You can also turn into a dog and eat the enemies. Great usage of sound effects, and definitely in the upper bracket of Coleco launch games. One of the better launch games for the ColecoVision was the Sega classic Zaxxon. I love this classic Sega game, this isometric view. I totally appreciated playing this back in the day in the arcades, and the home conversion for the ColecoVision is pretty awesome. Now there is even an updated version for the Atom computer. I love this. It even has boss fights where you fight the mighty Zaxxon. I'm not too great at this game, but I do appreciate playing it, and I think it's one of the better launch games for the ColecoVision. Solid title. Alright, number 2 for me is the Pac-In game Donkey Kong, and in '82 this was a fantastic port. Now I know there's other versions that are better, but in '82, this was amazing, and it's still fun to play to this day. I still love playing the Coleco version of Donkey Kong. Now that it is missing the conveyor belt stage 3, but I still think it's fun to play. There was a retail box version made for the Atom computer owners, very hard to get. But if you're looking for a good version of Donkey Kong, look no further than the Colecovision version. There also is an Atom computer version, which adds additional animations and that missing stage. Some may just look at Ladybug as a Pac-Man clone. I think it's much more, and it's one of my most favorite Colecovision games to play. It's a little different than the arcade, but it brings that experience, that arcade feel to the home console. Great graphics. You're always on the run. You're trying to avoid these nasty bugs, and picking up bonuses along the way. Depending on the color, you're given a series of different points. And I think this is a fantastic game and one of the best on the Colecovision library. And it was a launch title. So amazing. Highly recommended, and it's my pick for best launch title. Huge shout out to Brett Weiss, who is a big fan of classic video games. He's also an author of several books. And if you want to check out his YouTube channel, the link will be below there. So what did you think of my list? Did you agree with it? How would you rate these from worst to best? And I would love to see your list, as I had a lot of fun doing this. We're not going to always agree, and you might have differences of opinion on my list, but that's okay. We can still be friends. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. I have lots of content that I upload every week, and you may want to consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell, as I'm always talking about classic video games. I'm also doing video game discussions. I'm showing collection videos. I'm doing lots of different content, and I'm sure you're going to find something you like. Thank you so much for coming. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you have a good day.